it looks as good as it sounds. His first thing was, it's so fucking fast, like, that's just a song. Like, what are you talking about? What the fuck? I just went around my notes and I was like, what's that new word I learned? I was like, mellifluous, and I was like, high octane, yeah. And they're gonna be fun to play live. Look forward to it. Because we had stages where it looks a bit Enya-ish, Caroline, you know, that's not suiting the metal. Unless they're Meshuggah and they're like using rhythm. I have no idea who's gonna show up, you know, I have no idea. Sound like the actual song, you know, and then when you plug into a big Marshall and it's just filled with noise. They're my Beatles, you know, like.
What would be your favourite thing about music?
Yeah, my favourite thing would have to be songwriting because so many documentaries about how music was made, how you record it, the logistics, gear that's used, studios, yada yada yada. But the one thing no one can tell you is where is the music coming from? They don't know. And if you ask me, it's source intelligence of the energy that's holding everything in place. And you know we're no different from that as humans, so we tap into that. And each instrument, i.e. you the human, is different, which is why no two people can write the exact same part. You know, it's filtered through you, the instrument, so it gives, how would you say, it gives a bias and a perspective, and that's how we get songwriting and distinctions. But no one can tell you where it comes from. I've done my best, but who knows? And it's a very spiritual thing to do. It requires a lot of silence in the mind for this information to come to you. And musicians are amazing for that, and I have so much respect for them for going to that deep place where they can find this information and give it out to the world and use it for good. And yeah, that'd have to be my favourite thing about music, because it's just like we know so little about it, but we have been using it for so long. And it's really, anytime I get a new song done, it's a really proud moment, and that's what I'm here for. So that's my favourite thing. Yeah. So I got into music from Guitar Hero. This is my console. As you can see, it's really worn down, and it's from Guitar Hero Metallica, which was a big part of my childhood. And me and my cousin used to play this religiously pretty much every day after school. And yeah, we just wore that thing down. We just loved playing it so much. And there's a couple of different Guitar Heroes on rotation in the game, but for me, it was always, like, we were doing this when our age had one digit, but for me it was always, when you pick the song you want to play in the list, it was always the heavy songs for me. I just loved, naturally I would gravitate towards the double bass, the distortion, the aggression, but I just always loved this, and from that point on it was always, intense metal that I loved so much. And what else? Yeah, it kind of got me thinking recently about why you favour certain genres over the other. And I have a little theory about that, and it goes like this. Not proven, but I have a theory, and I'll share it with you guys anyway. And it goes like this. So there's this thing in science called constructive interference, where you get two energies which are quite similar. And what happens is when they converge, they actually create a larger waveform than they do on their own. And that's constructive interference, basically. And the opposite of that is destructive interference, where they cancel each other out if they're too different, and it's destructive, right? So I'm thinking with music, I'm going, are you getting an episode of constructive interference when you listen to a certain piece of music, or you favour a genre over the other? I'm thinking, I bet that's what's going on. Like why do you, you said you love punk rock, right? So that's what you gravitated towards as a kid. And when you listen to that and you feel taller, your head is held higher, and you actually feel lighter as well. So I'm going, I think that's what's going on. So if you ask me, that's definitely what's going on. And also, another way to call constructive interference is harmonic resonance, which is very convenient for music. So that's my theory about genre and why we pick them. So yeah. Mm-hmm. I think my music is really, it's intense, it's fun, it's a little bit quirky. The high parts in the guitars, they're slightly out of intonation, but it works very, very well, because if everything is completely in tune, then it cancels each other out. So if it's a little bit out of tune, it actually gives a nice harmonic resonance to it. And that's obviously to do with the gear you're using, but most importantly your hands. So The way my hands give out those high notes, it has a quirkiness to it, so I really like that. But it's also empowering, I don't know, it is intense, and yeah, there's elements of surprise to it, and it's propelling, it's challenging as well. It's challenging to listen to because you've got lots of new parts coming on to your ear very frequently, and as the player, it keeps you on your toes, and I enjoy that because I don't want to be bored. But I like to be challenged, and I like to get to a stage of the song where it's challenging, but I can play it and listen to it like the listener simultaneously. And when I get that going, it's just complete bliss. It's just so fun, and I'm in my happy place when I do that. So that's how I describe my songs. They're aggressive, but they're, encouraging and high octane, yeah. And they're going to be fun to play live. Look forward to it. Okay, so what I need in a song is melody, and melody it's universal language. It transcends all languages. It moves you in a way that is just so profound because it's an everyday example of the invisible world being able to have an impact on you. And melody is always something that goes down well at a gig, when you're singing your favorite band's songs, and it's always an underlying melody that's carrying that. And that has always been number one for me in a song, and every song of mine will have that till the day I die. It's very important. So melody is the first one. The second one is riffs. I love, love, love riffs, and I do my best to make them distinct, and how each song has riffs that don't sound identical to each other. I want them to have their own post office, so to speak. I like to have that, and they have an underlying melody in them too, in between the chugging, which kind of gives them form and shape. So that's my way to do riffs, and a riff, usually 2 or 3, is really important in a song. The next thing would be tempo. I noticed with a lot of my songs, they're all really, really fast, and in the beginning, I was very desensitized to that, because I was just like writing songs that I like. And then when I showed it to friends and family, the first thing was, it's so fucking fast, like, you're a drummer, you're gonna need 2 drummers, like going back and forth to give them breaks and you're doing this live. And I was like, that's just a song. Like, what are you talking about? What the fuck? And then in recent times, I can hear what they're saying, and I'm going, jeez, it is pretty fast. What have I done here? But no, I enjoy that. It's part of the attack, the healthy aggression, and the energy that I love in a song, because all my songs are in E standard. I don't downtune. So there's obviously a different type of heaviness. It's not the modern day heaviness, but at the same time, it's not a nostalgic heaviness. I like to just use standard tuning as a way to be creative, because more songs have been written in standard than in all these downtuned songs. So I use it as that, and then you use your attack as a player to make it aggressive, and also put 5s on the bass, which are power chords. That's served me really, really well. It makes it nice and heavy, so I enjoy that. That's really good. Okay, so my last part for a song for the ingredients I want in a song is song structure. So I don't want a basic verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, we're done. I'm not happy with that, really, unless it's a unique situation where it actually doesn't feel like that. Because a lot of the time with songs, all I'm hearing is that. Like, if a song isn't good, then all I hear is the structure, and that's not a good sign for me. So what I like to do is have the best parts I can have with interesting song structure. Just changing it up. So if I go verse, chorus, verse, and then I have a brand new section that comes out there that, is new stimulation to the listener and to myself, and then give you another part, and then bring it back to, let's say an intro riff, or just, for example. But I like to sort of have surprise in a song. Surprise is super, powerful. It's a powerful medium, and a way to do that is to mess around with song structure, and mess around with it in a way where it still feels like a solid, cohesive piece of music, and it's not just jumbled down all over the place. So those are my ingredients to make a song, and I love them. They work out great. So I noticed with a lot of my songs, well, actually with all of them, they've got a bunch of different parts, and because of that, the material that's available after becomes less and less. So I have a case of quality over quantity, which I'm very okay with. I wouldn't like to have 60 songs that are meh, as opposed to what I have right now, which I love, which is over 20 songs that I think are all really, really good. And yeah, quality over quantity is definitely a big part of what I do, because I like songs to be interesting. I like there to be multiple parts, and it's a basic reality of choosing that route. You're going to have less songs. So things like playing live is obviously going to be a challenge, but you know, it's going to be a creative one, creative challenge, and you can fatten it up with maybe a drum solo, or you know, talking to the audience, like really talking to the audience, and put in a few covers, something like that, and you know, whoever you'd be opening up for, or vice versa. And yeah, so you get the same amount, but just in a different way, you know. So that's how I like to do it, and it's great. Yeah. Okay, so melody for me, like I said before, is so important because I can leverage it very well as an instrumental artist, where you can still communicate with the audience through them wanting to sing the part, even though there's no lyrics to it. And like I said, it's paradoxical because, you know, like even when I listen to music, like I want to sing along to those parts. And I think it's going to go down very well live and be very, you know, interactive and communicative and fun. And I think it's a great thing to leverage as an instrumental artist, to have that melody to do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. And yeah, great way to bond with your fans. I think it's great. So it's very important to me. I couldn't really imagine a song of mine without it, because many songs that don't have it never really interested me. They've always been very forgettable, unless they're Meshuggah and they like using rhythm to write songs. But for the most part, there needs to be an underlying melody of some kind for it to have any glue or weight. So for me, it's really important, and I love melody for that reason, and that's how I use it. Okay, so this is the guitar I use to record music, and this is the Ibanez S1070 PBZ in, I think it's cerulean blue, I think that's how you pronounce it. And I love the S series because it's so thin, and it's not like a foreign object on the body. It's like another appendage. It doesn't get in the way, it's streamlined, it's ergonomical, it's great. And the pickup I like to use the most out of this is the Tone Zone by Damasio. It's a hot pickup, it's aggressive, but it's controllable, because I like to keep it as quiet as possible, because you know, if you're a player, you know, it gets noisy with distortion, but at the same time you want distortion because it sounds great. So I like to use that pickup for that idea. That's really good. And it's an Ibanez, so it's got a really thin neck. I love a fast neck. I like to have nothing get in my way when I'm playing. I like to just get straight to the music. So a nice thin neck and a short scale length is a great way to do that, because you don't want to be looking at a road of information. You want it to be nice and condensed. So that's great for me. And lastly, we've got stainless steel parts. I'm not a fan of nickel because it oxidizes sweat. It soaks it up and it's disgusting. So if you're a sweaty player, I'd say use stainless steel. I love stainless steel, and they take a beating. And I like to, you know, have some attack when I play. So the stainless steel is a non-negotiable. So I love using that. And that is my Ibanez that I love to use for recording the tracks. Okay, so amplification-wise, I like to use a Randall Head T2H. I got this one on Reverb, and it's got a gold custom job on it, and it looks as good as it sounds. It's really cool. So I use that for everything. It's really aggressive and meaty, but once again, it's like the Tone Zone pickup. It's easy to control, and I really like that. And as far as cabs, I use a Marshall 1960 4x12 cab, and that provides great crunch and attack. So that's what I use to record music. Very simple, very straightforward. I don't use any pedals. I just use that and straight from the cable and then ready to go. Because I think, you know, for what I like to do, I like to keep it just about songwriting. And as long as that's good, you shouldn't need anything else, unless you're using an effect to have a part for a song. Like that can work too. But for me, I like to just keep it straightforward and have the parts do all the talking for you. Okay, so what I think about that statement, genre second, songwriting first, is that if a song for me is good, I hear the songwriting and the parts first, and that's what like sticks out to me the most. Like I said, melody is really good at doing that. And then after I've distinguished that, after a couple of seconds later, then I pick up on the genre. So the genre is like a very superficial layer of the experience. It's like saying, you know, I have black hair, for example, but that's not me. Do you know what I mean? There's more going on than that. And the underlying fabric of a track is obviously songwriting, and then the genre is your superficial layer that like tops it all off. And for me, when I hear that the other way around, when I hear genre first and songwriting second, it's probably not something I'm going to be interested in. So genre second, songwriting first is always a good sign for me if I'm hearing a song for the first time, and I'd probably enjoy it if that's how it goes. But if it's the other way around, I probably won't be a fan. So I noticed that with making music that it's usually the first one that sticks out. So yeah, that's my take on that statement. So right here is a film portrait. Can you see that? Yeah. Yep. This is a film portrait from the film Easy Virtue that came out in 2008. And who's in it? Colin Firth and Jessica Biel starred it. And this movie, I thought it was really good, but I most enjoyed the music about it. And what's his name? Maurice de Vries. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but he did the music for this film. In particular, the track Tango, which you see at the end of the film. And this stuck with me really strongly because it was just so densely populated in melody, and melody is a big thing in my life. And I said, I'm going to do some ear training on this song because you can't get tabs for film scores like that, and quite frankly, I don't want them because, any musician who's a real musician can do it by ear. So I did it by ear, and it took me, I'd say, about a month to get it all right. It was really dense, and my goal was to make it more simple and more straightforward and to have much less instruments, because the one in the movie has like, I'd say minimum 20 different instruments going on, and it's kind of a detriment to it if you ask me, because there's a lot of great parts in it that you can't hear, that it will pass the average listener's ear. So for me, I wanted to make it much more straightforward and to grab the meat and potatoes of the song and just give it guitar, bass and tambourine, and that worked out really well. So that is Tango, and I took that from the film Easy Virtue, and this is one of the film posters from when the film came out. And I liked this one the most because it was just the most distinct and, eye-catching. And what I said was I'd take the actors out of it, and then I'd put everyone who was involved in the project in it instead. So I'll take you through that right now. So this guy right here, and the names are above him too, this is Kusno, and he is the illustrator. He did all of this for me. So I just gave him the poster and he ran with it. And I gave him all the photos of everyone and he put them in. And they look eerily similar, so I said thank you so much, you did such a good job, I'm so happy with this. And then over here we have Bob. Bob is the mix engineer, and you might know Bob from working with the band Extreme. He mixed a lot of their albums and he's very closely related to them. So that's Bob, and that's me right there. And then Caroline is my first cousin, and I needed that spot filled up, so I said, can I just make you the director of the movie? So I have her name down there as the director. So that's Caroline there. And then Hugo here is the drummer. So I said I'd pop him in there, and I got the two guys there with the suits. And I got a kind of like a mix of modern and old, because the movie is from the 1920s, it's set in the 20s. And as you can see, there's actually a watch, a modern day watch here, even though he's meant to be from back in the day, but I thought that was really cool. So we've got a mix of modern and old, and I just think this turned out really well. The first time I seen it with colour, I was actually stunned. I just thought it turned out so well. And yeah, it's a portrait. And faces are actually, I learned recently, faces are really hard to draw. And I'll tell you why. I'm just going to put this down for a moment. Okay, I was doing a silhouette sketch of Ben Barnes. So this is actually taken from a photo by, shout out to Laura Lynn, who took this photo back in January this year from Where the Light Gets Into Her. And this photo just stood out to me. I said, I just took a notion, I was like, I'm going to sketch this for the crack, I'm just going to do this. And so I did this here. And then when I went to do the face, I said, okay, this is going to be fun. And long story short, even if you trace the face of someone that you're doing a sketch of, it's actually like, you need prior knowledge and experience in doing that to make it work. So that's why I made that a silhouette. I have other sketches here of how I worked on the face, but I'm not going to show that because it looked so bad. But anyway, once again, just to bring it back full circle, that Kusno really captured everyone's nuances and features here, and I've got so much respect for that. And Kusno, if you're watching, thank you so much. This turned out badass. So that's the portrait for the songs. And one other thing, So that was the tango I was talking about there. I also did a cover of the track Mad About the Boy, which features in the film. And that was another thing where I was like, I'm just gonna do some more training. And I ended up liking the progress that I did in that song. So what I did was I took the tango and Mad About the Boy and I made a medley out of them. And I love that medley. I think it turned out really good. But then when I went to release it, long story short, the distributor wouldn't allow medleys to be released in the one track, so to speak. So I had to send it back to Bob, the mix engineer, and he chopped them up for me. So they're 2 songs now. So if you're watching this now, it's out on all platforms, but it's 2 separate songs. So that's that. But I'll probably work on getting that medley out somehow, because I've seen other artists put out medleys, and there's obviously a way to go about it. So I'll make that work. But anyway, that is the tango and Mad About the Boy from a really good film, and that's it. Yeah. Okay, so how I like to name an instrumental track is, it's very simple and it's abstract, and it goes like this. So what I do is I listen to it and I pick either words or a word that I think most sounds like it. And yeah, it's abstract, but it works for me and I like that. So, because we have to have a way of labeling them and having it be cohesive with what you're hearing. So I thought picking a word that best describes the track musically is a great way to go about that. And a very obvious example of that in my catalogue would be a song called Mellifluous, which is the definition for melodic or sweet sounding to the ear. And when I was working on that track, we had no title for it. And Hugo, who you saw in the portrait a while ago, he was like, can you give me a label for it? And I was like, oh, I don't have one for it yet. And I just went around my notes and I was like, what's that new word I learned? I was like, mellifluous. And I was like, that works really well. Mellifluous, all right. Working title, Mellifluous. We'll go with that for now. And as we worked on the song, it just stuck. So I said, Mellifluous, okay. It's very direct and straightforward, because when you listen to the song, it's just the same melody over and over again, but it's pretty powerful. So I said, okay, we'll keep that. So that's my way of labeling songs, and it's certainly well since then. Yeah. Personality, they're like breathing humans. They are indeed. And I think that bleeds obviously into music really well, because you can learn a lot from someone just from listening to the music that they write. You can learn about how they, that their attack and how they express what they're saying in maybe like the mechanics of their voice. If someone is very maybe soft-spoken, their touch on the guitar can be very delicate, And for me, I'm quite assertive as an individual, and my music is no different. So it bleeds into it very seamlessly. And, it's direct and it's high energy and it's fun. I like to think I'm all that too. And it's really, music is a great way to see like who the folks are like who are running the show behind the scenes, who are writing it. And I notice that a lot with musicians, and I think it's a really interesting concept, to see that, how it bleeds into all avenues of life as well, just to sort of know the different breeds and know that, like, okay, that person's energy, I know from experience, I'm not going to get along with them, and to then be able to say, oh, this person here, I know from that person's energy that I will get along with them. And, it's the same today with yourself, Michael, that, for anyone watching, I never met Michael before. We just did an email to sort this event out. And I was like, I have no idea who's going to show up, I have no idea. But the minute I met him, it was just straight away, easy peasy. So, ready to rock. And yeah, so it definitely bleeds into music and it bleeds into life. And it's a good way to go about it. That's my way. Learning to play the part is the first half. And you learn that by experiential knowledge. So, in the first couple of years of playing your instrument, at least playing guitar, you have to work on phrasing and going like, that doesn't sound like the actual song, and phrasing was a big thing for me to get that right when I was learning tracks and learning how to play. And that's obviously a big thing to get right. And then when you plug into a big Marshall and it's just filled with noise, that is the second part I'm referring to here. Just to keep everything as quiet as you can so that the beautiful distortion can sing out your parts and be as clean as you can with the necessary noise. It's not going to be spot on, but you can get it 98%. And that has been a big challenge for me with my songs, because I didn't want to compromise on distortion. And like I said earlier, I didn't want to use pedals to diminish the sound. I wanted to see how much can I push myself to do it all with just the hands without any help. And that has been a big part in playing for me. And it definitely is like absolutely necessary if you want loads of distortion. And your hands is going to do the heavy lifting. You know, the tone is in your hands. The superficial layer is your gear, you know, your amp settings, pickups, and yeah, that's the superficial layer. And the heavy lifting is, you know, the technique and keeping it quiet and the organic tone that's in your hands. And you know, I'm a work in progress, and yeah, it's definitely an ongoing challenge, but I enjoy it, and it's part of the fun. Yeah, I absolutely can talk about the Ramones. So you might be shocked to hear that I like them, but they have been a very important part of my life, and very, like I was saying to Michael behind the camera a while ago, they're my Beatles. You know, like they've so many good songs, like one great song after the next, but in punk rock fashion. And there's just such a, like, it's the complete opposite of mine. Like, it's super simple, super straightforward, but it's an art. And it's like a very like narrowed down equation to get right, to have like such simple parts that are so like profoundly good. You know, it's really a good example of them using source intelligence and, you know, extracting songs from that and having it being filtered through them as the individuals, as each individual is different. You know, each instrument is different and it's going to be filtered out and they're going to do the thing. But the Ramones, they are so important to me. I mean, I had them playing while we were setting this up, and the vibe was just really good and strong, and they will always be important to me. And they've got a funness that I like to think that I can hopefully have in my songs too. Like, I know I said they're night and day, but just a funness and an encouragingness to just, you know, enjoy life and have fun and, you know, do your best, but not sweat the small stuff and not take yourself too seriously, but to just, you know, enjoy it all, have fun. And the Ramones, I will love them to my last breath. They are so important to me. And also a quick note as well, Linda Ramone. I absolutely love how she runs her Instagram, because it's just such a beautiful way to honor the band and to honor her husband, Johnny Ramone, because she's always, you know, posting photos with stories about them and very consistently. And it's a beautiful way to keep them alive, because they are a little underrated. Like, let's face it, they are. Even though they're so well known, they're a little underrated. And, you know, to have Linda doing her thing and keeping their legacy alive and introducing them hence to new fans, I think is just beautiful. And yeah, the Ramones will always be important to me. I love them, they're great. Okay, so how I go about doing the artwork for the albums is, number one, I delegate, because I'm not an artist. I'm just here to focus on music, do what I do, and that's it. So if you focus on your domain, you're going to get good results. So what I do is I delegate. I'll get an illustrator to take my idea and roll with it, and keep it, like I said with labeling songs, keep it as cohesive and exact as the songs sound, because I have a memory of working on the cover art for my first album, Famous for Nothing, and as we were working on it, it took so long to get it to where it finally is now, because we had stages where it looks a bit Enya-ish, Caroline, you know, that's not suiting the metal. And just out of nowhere, Caroline came up with this idea where she's like, I'm gonna make it circular, and I'll put blue flames on it, and make a black background. And I said, when I seen that, I went, that's it, that's metal, we need to use that. So, and that was a long process to get that, but, you know, good things come to those who wait, and it certainly did for us. And I'm really glad I did that, because it did not look cohesive with the music at all. And it's really important to get those two things locked and exact. And I'll always work with an illustrator to do that for me. And have the, well, you can actually see it back here. See some fonts back there from, that's actually from Famous for Nothing, yeah. So you can see it back there. And I'll keep the same fonts for cohesiveness and give that to the illustrator I'm working with, so she can plug it in, and then we're good to go. And that's it, yeah. There's a lot of back and forth, because I'm very particular about how I want it to look. And what I realized with working with artists is that we can have the most simple idea, but you're going to see it very differently to me, or slightly differently to me. And that's why, for example, my second album, Explode, I think we had 10 revisions going back and forth to get it right, especially doing it online as well. You know, you need to be patient, but it took 10 goes to get my exact vision in place. So That's the proof to me that, you know, it is so abstract, you know, this creative process. So you need to be aware of that and to stick to your guns and have no compromises, no excuses, and no bullshit. And just keep going till you get what you want. And that's how I go about it with the music and with the cover art. So there you go, that's how I go about it. So what I'd say to young musicians is to stick to your guns, follow your gut, and don't be distracted by external noise like social media, like any form of external. And when folks disagree with you, you just go, that's fine, no problem. You know, I just stick to my guns and I do my thing, you know, because you have the vision for a reason, so it cannot be diluted by someone else's vision. Like, I think there's a reason why you only see what you see in your head, because it's meant to be only for you, so that it's created through your filter, and then it has no compromises or excuses when it's brought out into materialization. So that would be my advice to young folks: just stick to your guns and learn how to be okay with crying. And you know, if you're serious about making music, you probably find it being very lonely occasionally, and to just get used to that and say, look, it's transient in truth and it's just part of the game, but you know, you're gracious for what you have as opposed to what you don't have, and when you do that, you get more. So doing that, and yeah, you know, not being too tough on yourself about the techniques as well, because they come. You know, anyone can learn technique, but you can't teach passion. So, you know, keep that passion to fuel what you love, and the technique, that can always be topped up on and fixed. And to just not be super tough on yourself with that, to realize you're only human, and to just say, hey, I'll do my best, and you know, the only way is up from now. So that'll be my advice, and to just enjoy the ride as well. So that's me from LEAH GANNON, and thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks very much.